Well, hi everybody, and happy Sunday. I'm here in the museum again, as you can see. We've had we've had this is the second broadcast that I've done specifically from the museum because of the closure of the border in St. Martin. Um, I think we've now got a solution to that. It was Friday a week ago that the French side closed the border with the Dutch side of St. Martin because of concerns with the Dutch side bringing in people, allowing planes to come in from the US and other areas that the EU isn't comfortable with. And so that kind of cut me off from my home and has meant that I've been in exile for a week and 2 days. Here on my own in the museum. But I just got permission yesterday, last night, from the prefecture to be able to cross the border. And so I got a special pass. So I'm happy to say that that is okay. Today's panel is a special one, and I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. But I also want to apologize for being a little out of circulation these last couple of weeks, really. You know, when we started these panels, I was on the other side of the border in my house. Again, the border was closed, and so I couldn't come to work. And so I was spending all my time working on StarNet and talking to you guys and to others, setting all of this up, organizing my panelists. Then when the border opened again, then I was splitting my time between the museum and here, and it gets hard to try and deal with everything because I'm trying to keep StarNet going, but I'm also rebuilding Yoda, and I'm also trying to run the museum, and I'm also trying to deal with the tourist board in promotions to revive the economy, and I'm also fixing the museum so it's good for visitors during COVID. And this last few days with me being stuck with the border and having to deal with that as well, instead of putting on a full 4-hour show today, I'm putting on this 1-hour replay of what I think is going to be a special rework of one of our panels. So, I am worried that when I am spending less time communicating with my team, with my supporters, that maybe my followers will dwindle, and it's only the followers that are keeping us going at the moment, because we're solely dependent upon our Patreon patrons and the people who support us through buying stuff through our sales. So please stick with us, okay? We really need you. So today's panel, let me tell you about that. Today's panel, I think, is a really exceptional one because it's absolutely in keeping with what our foundation is all about. It's specifically about trying to make that transition from being a hobbyist or being an enthusiast to becoming a professional in your chosen profession. And we've got 3 people that I'm interviewing that have made that transition. And of course, I made that transition myself a while ago, but I did that too. So what I've done here is I've taken the panel that we did, I guess now it must be probably 3 months ago or so. But I've also incorporated tips and additional things from my little book of big ideas which they describe as a Jedi's guide to self-empowerment. I like the description, what can I tell you? So, you know, I've got a few tips there on how to get started and the mindset that you need to make that happen. So with no more ado, we're going to start that panel now, and I'll talk to you again in about an hour. Now we're going to bring Cynthia and Kelly in a minute, where we talk about the fact, you know, of making that transition from being in cosplay or whatever else to actually being a professional. How did you, Riki, how did you make that transition of going from being a cosplayer to doing that, you know, that professional person?
So my transition was I was working as a fine art mold maker. And one of our clients was a makeup special effects guy, and he was doing fine art, but in between doing fine art, he would still take makeup effects jobs. And he said, hey, I know you do cosplay. We're essentially looking for a prosthetics PA, but someone who can also do specialty costuming. Would you be interested? And so I said, oh, yeah, sure. So they sent me to what I call Fat Camp School in LA for a few days. And I learned how, it was a spectral motion. They did the first Hellboy, and am I forgetting some other stuff they did? It was like a blur, and I came back, and so the first movie I ever did was Big Mama's House 3. I wrangled the fat suits, cleaned the fat suits, repaired the fat suits. I had no clue about set etiquette. I had never worked with fat suits before, and then being a prosthetics PA on top of that. It was the most amazing time of my life. Wouldn't change it for the world. And then from there, people who worked at Spectrum Motion, I went on X-Men First Class, and that was worked with a few people from that. AEI worked on that, so I wrangled the Beast suit on set costumer, and then it word them out.
Our foundation is basically about, you know, uplifting people, inspiring people to believe in themselves and to be creative in whatever form. And so the transition from hobby to profession is something that's very, you know, very close to my heart. It's at the heart of a lot of the things that I do. When people come and see me in a museum and I'm talking to them, and really, I had a couple of people who came and talked to me and ended up, you know, on the crew on Rogue One. You know, in my day when I was heads of department, you know, I had people who started with me as trainees that are now part of the academy deciding who gets the Oscars, who are producers with Steven Spielberg, or one of the guys who was 16 when he started with me made Blade, was the director of Blade. So, you know, this particular panel is very, you know, close to my heart. So I think the core to this discussion really should be, you know, making that transition, the sense of making the most of it, of your opportunity when it opens. And how did you make that transition, Cynthia, from being a hobbyist to suddenly looking at this at a possibility that might change your life?
Yeah, I think at first it was a little difficult. I didn't go to school per se to be a costumer. It was genuinely just a hobby from the beginning, and I wasn't maybe as confident in my skills because I didn't have that technical training. But I think coming out of university and being the job market was a little difficult, so I ended up just using my other skills that I had beyond my degree, which was actually the Japanese language. Like I studied in Japan, and ended up just, that became the successful route. Like literally, I just threw my resume out there to some local theaters in Orlando, and that's kind of how I got started, was doing children's theater. And then from there I went to kind of like with Riki's transition, it was an odd job where I started working for SeaWorld and literally just cleaning the animal trainer costumes for the shows. So I literally say, you know, cleaning seal boogers off of clothes, like that was a day job. But from there, like getting that network going, and that's what it is, like getting that network going. Then somebody was later like, hey, like I know you can sew, you know, Disney's looking for seamstresses. So from there, jumping on that train and never looking back, you know. So I think we all come about it there's really not always a direct way to do that.
So Kelly, what about you?
Well, I actually started out in fashion, and it was just becoming increasingly apparent that it was not going to be a good fit for me. So I started seeking out opportunities on the side, working first with like interning for like more theatrical fashion designers, like people who were, you know, making hats and like little specialty pieces or full outfits for like musical performers. So it was still technically fashion, but it was very theatrical. And then I got more and more into theater, and when I eventually moved to LA, I ended up working in the theater department at UCLA, and it was through some of the teachers there and a lot of the graduate students that I started to get more and more film work, and eventually joined the local union here.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't never quite sure where the route was taking in terms of becoming a professional. I was a young kid who just grasped whatever opportunities came to me. I often say I think that being young has the advantage that you don't know that you shouldn't be able to achieve what you just achieved. Whereas when you get older, you put together all the things that can go wrong and say, oh, I don't know if I would do that. You know, you might fall on your face, but when you're young, you just throw yourself at it and you get through it. But if you have the confidence to do that, I think confidence is a critical thing. There are people who just sit, and when an opportunity comes to them, they spend so much time weighing up whether they should or whether they shouldn't do something, whether it's the right thing or whether it's the wrong thing. By the time they've made up their mind, the opportunity's gone. And so there is, when you're trying to make your hobby or something that is your passion into a profession, there is a degree of being decisive. Even if you're not sure you're making the right decision, you've got to grab the opportunity as it whizzes by. I think that's critical to critical to that. And then afterwards, people think, oh, you got into the business. Oh, that's great. They don't understand that often it's a freelance business, particularly for movies. It's a freelance business, and then you're employed today and you're unemployed tomorrow, and now you're in that limbo of looking for work. I guess it's different when you're with Disneyland, but you have the security and are still dealing with that. But it's famine or feast when you're making movies. You're struggling to try and make a living, and then you're the it guy, and everybody wants you, and you can't ever get a day off. You can't get a break. You can't get a holiday. Becky, did you find that that going into the business, you had so much else that was going on with your cosplay that you didn't really notice so much the gap where you weren't making movies, or was it something that you did through outside jobs through outside firms, or were you going in as a studio worker? How did that happen?
I am part of our local 479 union. For me, the one thing I did notice, I'd always made a decision that conventions will never affect movie work, because movie work is my priority, even though I'm at the bottom. I mean, I consider myself at the bottom. it is weird. I'm sorry to sound like a weird, like backhanded. It's weird to go from a convention where they pick you up in a car, you have a green room, you have a hotel, to like going to set and just being like cleaning sweat out of like somebody's outfit, you know. So I for the longest time I did keep it under wraps. I mean, people always find that strange when they find out it's like I'm some kind of weird freak show on set, that I have a secret life.
Transition is like that too. I had a friend that when I first met him, he was a helper in the wardrobe department, because the people that he met first were wardrobe people, so the ironing shirt. He really wanted to work in the production department. So as time went by, he got to be a head of department in the wardrobe department, making small movies. So you could say his career was really taking off there, but he wanted to be in the production department. After 5 years, he got to know those people, and he did the changeover from being the head of department to being the one who was making the coffee and going and calling the actors in the production department. Eventually got to produce movies, but it's a matter of the journey of life that that you say, well, yeah, this is working out for me. Maybe this won't be there forever. Maybe I won't be, maybe I'm a star here today and I'm not going to be, maybe my enthusiasm for that will wane. You have to grow as a human being, and that takes you through different hills and valleys.
Yeah, but to quickly answer your question, anytime I wasn't working on a film, I was using downtime to make costumes or, just work on my skills, hone my skills, because you never know. I mean, you guys know this. You never know what the next job's going to ask you to do. And so you might not be a master at whatever they're asking you to do, but to have a little bit of base knowledge that you can then develop on it goes a long way. So I almost use cosplay as sort of a way to test my skills. To keep myself fresh. As I said, I'm not like a natural seamstress. I'm not a natural sculptor.
Talking about natural seamstress, this kind of brings me back to Cynthia. Cynthia's some of the stuff that Cynthia's done in terms of seaming and seamstressing and tailoring just looks extremely professional to me. They really show a craftsmanship that is something that is extraordinary. And I don't mean to embarrass you when I say that, but I really think that you deserve the credit where that credit is due. Both of you ladies were award winners at the Her Universe contest at San Diego Comic-Con. And, when you look at the work that has gone into this costume, it's not some great space invader. It's not some huge thing. It is just a matter of pure work, the work that's gone into the diagonals in the body here, the work that's just gone into these pleats and all of this stuff. It's no wonder to me that that you won that fashion show. Tell me more about it.
Yes, so me and Kelly, we both were the Judges Award winner for the Her Universe Fashion Show. And it's a fashion show that was started by the voice actress for Star Wars, Ahsoka Tano, Ashley Eckstein. And it just focuses on essentially the fashion side of fandom. And so we take different characters and different fandoms and essentially create like couture looks off of those. This one is actually the creature from The Shape of Water, that directed by Guillermo del Toro. And so from that stage production, the winners will go on to create a fashion line, a kind of nerdy fashion line for Hot Topic. And mine was Avengers Endgame, and Kelly's was The Force Awakens. Kelly, is that correct? Okay, she did the Star Wars Force Awakens. So we were really lucky in all our hard work was really appreciated by the judges. And
asking you here though is just it's really as complicated and as detailed as it looks to me as a piece.
Yes,
I think it looks like a huge endeavor.
It was a huge endeavor. Usually these looks take about 3 months of intensive work on constantly to create. I mean, there's all kinds of hidden boning inside that you don't even see, you know. And then of course with the pleats, like, you know, that's about 3 layers of fabric that's pleated. So you have the gold lame underneath that's fused to the silk on top, and that's all pleated. So literally each layer is pleated about literally about 3 times on the ironing board just to make sure that the placement is correct, because it's not just a straight pleat like maybe a basic circle skirt or schoolgirl skirt is. This is actually like I had to think about how these fins would curve around the body, and so I actually had to place the pleats specifically to allow those to curve while the model is walking, and so it doesn't look just like a straight up and down pleat. It actually looks like some fins radiating, so a lot of like radial pleats. And yeah, it's a lot when you think about it like that. And I mean, yeah,
I see someone saying, "Oh, I like that. Make me one of those." You know, you know, this would probably cost a small fortune for someone because of the amount of work that's involved in, you know, in doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
We got some other stuff here from your work with Disney.
Yes. Yeah. So basically we talked about transitioning from hobby to profession. Of course, like using a lot of the techniques in costume and cosplay has, of course, definitely helped in my professional work because I already have that background. I mean, in order to get involved with Disney, and Kelly can confirm, a lot of union shops, they will have a skills test or some sort of sewing test. And so, so passing that is the first benchmark. And then you start to get the harder projects, such as, like, for myself, the like Marvel costumes are incredibly detailed and incredibly tailored. So you know, moving on to projects like for Disneyland Paris, I was the garment cutter for the Marvel Summer of Heroes. So I worked on, you know, Doctor Strange and Thor and Loki, and those are really some of my favorite projects, to be honest. So yeah, I love that photo from the show of Thor and Loki. I think it's amazing, and look at those capes. But yeah, so I think it's just really incredible. Like, see, learning from my work, there's so much leather, as you can see in some of these projects, and then taking that kind of basic knowledge home and then implementing those techniques into my costume and learning more about leather working and etc. I can also bring that back into my profession. So it's really just a fluid back and forth between what I'm experimenting with at home and then what I bring later to, yeah, and there's Cap as well in that photo, and what I bring later into my professional work. So I love it. I think it's so invigorating to never stop learning, because, you know, I go to work and I learn something new, and then I take it home and I expand upon that. And that's why, you know, I get these cool projects. And then, you know, so yeah, I think the next photo, so this kind of shows where I started with cosplay. I mean, this was like about 10 years ago when I was first learning how to airbrush. And I was like, yeah. And then once again, like leatherworking, just taking those techniques from, you know, those techniques from Disney, and then doing a full, like, crazy leather Game of Thrones ball gown. It's really incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then ancient.
I was intrigued, and this isn't one of the photographs that you gave me, but it was something that I found elsewhere.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, like armor and things like that.
Armor work, because, you know, we're looking at you as being, you know, someone who basically is a consummate tailor, seamstress, making fabrics, and then lo and behold, you know, here is something that is, you know, entirely different. What was this for?
This was for a video game. I think it was called Samurai Kings. This was like 5 years ago when I was really into video games. And what the unique thing about this particular outfit was just the fact that I didn't really come into, I used to actually hate, maybe not hate sewing, but it was actually my weakest part of costume creation. Like, I felt more strong in prop and armor work, but that was also because I didn't really understand sewing techniques in, like, professional finishing. It kind of took me that transition into professional to really start practicing and understanding essentially what is good sewing and what is proper finishing. So armor I still love, and as you can see, I'm still working on it behind me, but I think I transitioned more into sewing just because I learned more. And I feel like armor is the same way. The more I learn about armor techniques and foam, it might just shift. And so that's why I work on that at home. So I'm very eclectic and fluid, I feel, when it comes to, like, my costume making. And I never want that to stop, because the reason that I started with costume making and cosplay was just because I wanted to keep learning. I came in from as a 2D artist, a traditional painter and and I would say drawer, but I felt like working and thinking in 3D was so much more fascinating. And you can do that with pattern making for garments and armor and all that thing. So I'm always learning every day something new, and that's what keeps me going.
I think that one of the things that is key to all of you is that you are not sitting around, twiddling your thumbs, waiting for something to happen. You learn in one space and you apply it to the next space. When you're waiting, when you don't have a job to do something, you could sit down and just watch a TV program. But I think the people like us, the ones that are the ones that make the difference, we're not watching much of the TV program unless we're also in the middle making something at the same time. It's an ongoing thing. I want to just go on to some of Kelly's images here while we're at it. Here we've got Kelly being Kelly, right? Tell us about this, Kelly.
Well, this is at the ArcLight Theater in Los Angeles. One of my friends noticed that two of the costumes that I worked on for Ant-Man and Wasp were there. And sort of what Riki was talking about before, how when in between jobs she'll like to learn new techniques. This is a perfect example of that, because when I had finished on Avengers, I went home and was back in LA for I think a grand total of 2 weeks. But while I was there one weekend, I took a beginner's laser cutting class. And then when I went on Ant-Man and Wasp, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have you work on Wasp, but we're a little bit behind with the laser cutting. So we're gonna have you do this." And I was like, "Oh, well, I just took a class. Is there any way I can help?" And then the next thing I know, I'm working on the laser cutter, helping cut out the pieces, because the guy that they had doing it was also one of the head mold makers, and it was more important for him to be making molds than to be sitting at the laser cutter, pushing a button every hour.
Did you ever get to a situation when you've worked on a costume for a movie, and then you're tempted to, or someone asks you to make the costume for cosplay? I mean, does that become kind of weird?
Rarely do I actually get asked that. I think because people understand that because of an NDA, I can't, or at least should not, if I did, I would have to make it differently than the one in the film, because a lot of the techniques would be considered proprietary. But usually just what I tell people, and it's honestly true, it's like I've already made that costume 8 times. I'm not really sure I want to make it a 9th time.
Talk to me about these.
So those are promotional photos from our Per Universe collection.
Exactly.
That's Ashley Eckstein, the owner of Per Universe, and Lital Platt, who was my co-designer on the collection.
You worked on Mandalorian as well, right?
This is Moff Gideon, and I worked with 2 different cutters, and so I believe his belt and his jacket doublet portion.
And other characters therein, I believe.
And this is my Admiral Holdo, again photographed by Eric. And these were some photos we took for my submission to the Rebel Legion. I'm actually approved as Admiral Holdo in the Rebel Legion. And I love making this costume, but it was a challenge just because of just getting the knit to behave and fold in all the right places. And
there's a lot of drapery and work that's done into the back of that, right? And these are other parts of your cosplay.
Another version of my Lady Loki costume, which is more based off of the comic book version. And I really love textile manipulation, so a big part of this costume for me was doing the weaving on the corset to sort of evoke snakes, and the finishing of the weaving portion actually is a little snake, like this little face at the bottom of the point and on one of the hips. And I did zipper stop edging on all of the costume pieces like it is in the MCU version of this costume.
This is a lovely photograph too, isn't it?
Another Art Nouveau inspired costume that I shot with Eric again, and we did sheer layers so that we could play with the sheer, and like I can actually see in my torso is some of the stars as well as the background.
I'm going to bring you ladies back again. Maybe we'll bring Riki back in. We've got a series of questions that are down the bottom here, and it would be nice to make sure that we get through those, and then if there's stuff left, afterwards we can finish up with that. Let me just look at the questions, and we'll see how they line up for everybody. This is a question specifically for Riki. It says, how would you suggest to start building a following? What do you do to remind yourself to stay active in the cosplay community? I'm a cosplay creator, but without conventions. I find it hard to share my work and to really grab people's attention.
I'm going to try to make this as concise as possible. When I started, there was no such thing as a following. So I can honestly say, if all social media went by the wayside, I would keep cosplaying, because you shouldn't be cosplaying solely to have a following. You should be cosplaying because you love it, either the characters or you have a passion for creating. But with that in mind, it is a wonderful experience to share that with people online. And I love everybody who follows me, and I love following other people who are passionate. And I think ultimately, some of the standard things, post often, decide what kind of cosplayer you want to be. Do you want to be a craftsman, a creator, a maker? Then I'm really bad for it. And I don't think people realize I make a lot of my stuff because I do not post progress photos. I am terrible for it. But if you want to be understood as that type of maker, post progress photos, because that will draw other makers to you. If you want to go the more modelly, sexy route, then be taking those types of photos and just be on with your brand. I think that's why I kind of blend between both. I'm not really hyper focused on either. And I don't mind that, I guess. But yeah, just stay true to what type of cosplayer you want to be, and just post often, interact with people, be genuine, do not be fake. I have been disappointed by meeting other cosplayers who are not the person they portray online as they are in person. It can be a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, I think that's it. Don't be a douchebag.
I'm going to aim this question at Kelly. When you're working on a costume for a game or a movie, how much creative license are you given with its design? Do they control every aspect of the design, or do you get to work within a set of parameters?
Would this be in the case of a commission or on a film?
No,
if it's a film, then I don't really get any input other than the practical aspect of, like, well, if you want it to do that, then it needs to be like this, or such. It's really only if I'm doing a commission or something for myself that I have like design input, other than like the practical making of something design.
I can tell you that within the movie framework, the team leader is supposed to give the guidance, and then the rest of the team is there to see it through. As a head of department, right at the beginning of a movie, you just you take your parameters from the written word. It says, oh, he's green, he's slimy, and he's green. Well, that's two elements that you've got to work in. But then you talk to the director who's going to be cutting this thing together and whose name is plastered all over it, and you try to find out what his ideas are, and then you try to realize something that really comes out of your own brain using all of the team of people that you put together to work with you.
Well, I know Kelly can vouch for this, but Marvel works a little bit different, especially in the superhero states. They have a visual development team, so they have people sketching out the designs, like Ryan Yandering, Andy Park, all those guys, and you have to basically work with the designer and the specialty and go from there and be like, translate that into something that will exist in the real world.
Another question here. I'm going to ask the question, and we'll see who's going to answer it. What is something that has surprised you about the difference in the making process for cosplay or for on screen for the stage? What is the difference there, Kelly?
Well, when you're cosplaying, like, you're making everything yourself, whereas on a film, like I may only make one thing for a character, I may only make their pants, but I make like 10 pairs of pants, and then my coworker makes just that character's shirts, but they make 10 of those shirts. So it's like both of us have a ton of work, but we're only doing one thing. Versus, cosplay, you're making the top and the bottom. And I guess when people ask, like, what did you do? Like, oh, you made that costume? It's like, well, I made part of it.
Yeah, or I got the, did you design it? I'm like, here's the designer. Like, off the screen. Or, yeah, and essentially cosplayers are making a prototype. Kelly and Cynthia are making a finished well, I'm not talking about like a prototype, you know, like it's might not be lying properly. It's sort of a proof of concept that the armor will kind of work on, but you guys have to make something go through stunts and look good on the show, and has to go through multiple showings, and so that's what you're doing.
I think, yeah, you brought up another good point, is that oftentimes, as opposed to like a cosplay where it's like, honestly, cosplay is relatively stationary. You kind of relatively stay in your hotel or convention space. But like for Kelly and myself, we have to make garments that are extremely functional, that can also oftentimes stand up to stunts and wire work. And we have to figure out how this costume is going to literally fly. So there's a lot more technical thinking that is involved with a garment that seems so stationary, if that makes sense. So
yeah, there only more than one version.
So when you're doing it professionally, you know, if part of it falls off, it's not just an embarrassment. It's it's professional injury. I got one last question here. I'm gonna start with Cynthia on it. Anybody else can jump in, but I know that this is relevant to you, Cynthia. Someone says, I think I hear 3D printer in the background. How has 3D printing changed your process and capability?
3D printing is definitely a game changer for a lot of costume work, especially for armor and other hard goods, because and honestly, we can print fabric at this point, but it has made me think about lessening my workload and increasing my rate of production, because I can literally, whereas I would have to sit and pattern a full suit of armor plus the soft goods of the costume. Right now I'm working on Mandalorian armorer. I can go, and now, honestly, my printer takes the workhorse of the armor portion, such as the helmet is printed, the armor is printed now, whereas a seamstress, I can literally just focus on the sewing side of it. So 3D printing has really helped to increase the work and production speed of costumes. It's really incredible, and so I love it.
Well, we're going to take that as our last question. Does anybody else have any contribution to that question about 3D printing?
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same in film. Like you can use 3D printing to get prototypes much quicker and just kind of hash out different parts of the design. And then usually the final version will be sort of molded and cast like more traditionally. But as far as like prototyping and just getting through like the mock-up stage, it's a huge time saver.
Yeah, and you can, and it can help you make multiple mock-ups as well, fast, quickly. So, but anyway.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any of you that don't feel that making the move from being a hobbyist to being a professional was a bad thing. I mean, I think it's all enriched your life, that you would all say that it's worth making the effort, taking the risk, taking the gamble. The point that I'm making is that the people have a life. They've got something that pays the bills, and then this other area is completely unknown. How are they, they've got to have the courage to grasp the opportunity. Is there anybody here who would say stay being a waitress?
For me, no, but I do know people that enjoy it purely as their hobby. Like they love making things, but they maybe don't want to do it 12 hours a day. Like I think it's personal choice, and either is fine. But I mean, for me, like I could sew and make things all day, and for me, this was the perfect choice for my life.
Thank you for giving me your time and your talent and your opinions. I have a great admiration for all of you, and I really appreciate it. So, Riki, thank you, and I'll see you again sometime, I hope. Okay?
Thanks for
And sorry, I cut Riki just a little. Sorry about that, Riki. And Kelly, Cynthia, thank you for taking the time and coming and joining me again. I really appreciate your support in all the things that we're trying to do here.
Yeah, and don't forget to let people know about the Yoda tip jar below. So, and the Follow Your Star Foundation. So all the proceeds, of course, go to your wonderful museum and nonprofit. So
thank you very much, guys. I run this foundation called the Follow Your Star Foundation, where we try to encourage people to be creative in whatever fashion that might be, whether it's cosplay, whether it's making movies, whether it's painting pictures, whether it's writing stuff. We try to encourage you to be doing something extraordinary with your lives, and that's the essence of what we do. When I'm talking to young people, sometimes to older people too, I often find that there are basic principles that I've lived my life by that just come out. And a lot of them are about trying to inspire people to follow their dreams and to think big rather than settling for less just because that's what everybody else does. You know, it's normal to take your standards from the people around you. There was a time, you know, I started this foundation some years ago, and it really came out of a conversation that I had with my old colleague Peter Mayhew, who had a foundation to help challenge kids in, you know, inverted commas. And I said to him, you know, Peter, don't you think that we're all challenged by society? We're challenged to conform to what other people consider to be normal. We're kind of packaged in school to go a particular way and to accept what everybody else does as being the thing that we should do because that's what everybody else does. Often people will come and they'll talk to me and they'll ask me questions and they'll look at my surroundings and they'll look at what I've made of myself, and you can see in their eyes they're saying, yeah, but what does he know about what it's like to be me? What does he know about about struggling to do these things and the things that I have to overcome? That I do know the struggles that everyone is going through. When I was 13, this teacher, this gentleman that you're looking at right here, he explained to me that I was an idiot, that I had all these fancy, crazy dreams, and I needed to get serious and take up practical skills like metalwork and other things that were going to be useful to me when I was working in the factory. Well, that did have a very significant effect on me because, you know, I hadn't really realized that people were judging me to such an extent that they'd already decided how I was going to spend the rest of my life. It's similar to that thing when you are around 13 and everybody says, oh, what are you going to do? What kind of job do you want? You've got no experience. You don't know what you want to do. You've got experience of nothing. How are you going to make a decision that is sensible, that makes any sense at all? It's really all that most people do is they listen to the people around them. They rely on that other person's experience. Well, I say when someone gives you advice, just take a moment to look at that person's life and ask yourself whether you want to spend your life doing what that person has been doing. Because if you don't, why would you take advice from them? Honestly, why? When this teacher said to me, that I needed to get serious, I did get serious, but I got serious to prove that he was wrong against really the most extraordinary odds. I made a plan and I tried to show him and the other teachers that I wasn't this idiot that they all thought I was. You see, if you accept other people's negativity, you allow your life to be limited by their lack of imagination. Your family means the best when they suggest to you that, oh, you shouldn't do something because it's going to be difficult and you might fail at that. So why don't you, study this and do something else? The classic one is someone wants to go and be something outlandish and people say, yes, but you need a backup plan. So let's have go to college and learn to be something reliable. And so those people go to college and they invest 3 or 4 years of their life preparing themselves for the fact that what they really want to do is going to fail. If you don't have a lifeboat, you make sure you know how to swim to shore. Can't remember what movie it was that someone said, the problem with plan B is it accepts that plan A might fail. Don't accept that. Don't be fearful of stepping out beyond what is normal. Schools are basically factories to turn out cogs in the system of society, and I'm not putting that down. I'm not putting normal people down either. If that's what someone wants to be, if that's what makes them happy, then that's great. But when you're a creative person like me and maybe like you,
being bombarded with all this negativity at a time when you don't have the experience to be able to believe in your own abilities just fills you with insecurity. And it's that insecurity that you have to overcome to be something beyond that. And this has become one of the biggest sayings in my museum. If you don't invest in your impossible dream, you're the one who guarantees that it won't come true. You've got to step outside the box and take control of your own destiny. You've got to follow your star, not the star you set for yourself, not the star that someone else does. I'm a movie maker and an author, and I run this foundation. I did many other things as well that I talk about along the way. But I always applied the same principles that had succeeded in making movies. And those are the principles that I write down in my little book, Big Ideas, a few of which I'm going to share with you today. In this book, I basically make sure that you don't have too much to read. The idea is that you read one page a day, and each page is a chapter in itself, and often it's only 1 or 2 paragraphs, but it's there to fire your imagination and make you think about what you're going to do today to achieve your dreams. Because the hard thing of achieving your dreams is staying on track. Everybody's got a dream, but then life gets in the way. It's you get distracted. You've got to do something for your mum, and you've got to buy a new pair of trousers, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that. And the day's gone by, but never mind. There's always tomorrow. Or well, maybe there's next week. Oh, well, maybe there's next month. Well, life passes you by, and those dreams that you had, you look back and you say, "Oh God, was that really 5 years ago?" You have to stay on track every day. And so in this book, I also have a blank page facing every chapter where you write down your thoughts. And each day you have to try and write them down in pencil. And each day try to find one of those things that you're going to get done today. It's much easier today. You've got the internet. There's a million things that you can find on the internet, where in my day I wrote everything down on a little piece, a little pad that I kept in my top pocket, and when I had a few pounds, I would try to find a bookstore that might answer some of my questions. Today you can go at light speed because you have all this information literally at your fingertips. So the first thing that I have in my book, step number 1, is to express the fact that you can't live an extraordinary life by being normal. You've got to get used to that idea. Everybody said, "I don't like that guy. He's not normal." Well, normal people don't change anything. Normal people go with the status quo. Normal people go through school and get a job and work for 40 years, and then they retire and sit in a chair and wait to die. That doesn't seem like a good plan to me. Maybe it does to you, but it certainly doesn't to me. So there's nothing wrong with not being normal. All your heroes are not normal. Movie stars are not normal, and great writers are not normal, and great musicians are not normal, and people who make movies are not more normal, and Olympians are not normal, and astronauts are not normal. None of these people who are everyone's heroes actually fit into the box of normality. So don't try. The second thing that's really, truly important is that if you accept normal people's negativity, you allow your life to be limited by their lack of imagination. This is your life. You have to live it. Don't let someone else decide for you or make you feel uncomfortable about following something because maybe other will think you're a flake. But when you're the weird kid in the class, you're the one who's going to change the world, not the guy who's the leader of the baseball team. Negativity is infectious. The more someone says, "Oh, I wouldn't do that," and someone else says, "Oh, I wouldn't do that," that fills you with that insecurity. And that negativity just spreads amongst the people around you. Maybe everybody in your family says, "Yes, he's a good boy, and he's good at art, but we know we can't make any money at art. So he's also good at numbers. Like, he could be an accountant or whatever." If your passion is art or something else, follow your passion, because if you follow your passion, you'll succeed because you put in more effort
it doesn't mean it'll be easy. It isn't easy to be exceptional. That's why they call it exceptional. But don't give in to someone else's negativity unless you like the way they've spent their life. Don't let the person you're destined to become be smothered by the insecurities of who you are today. I'm not the person I was when I was 18 years old. I had someone one time who asked me, when you were a kid, what did you want to be? And without really thinking about it, I found that I said, I wanted to be me. I've grown to be the person that I wanted to be. And honestly, if you are truly driven at what you do, you can turn a passion into a career. The thing is, you've got to avoid the negativity that discourages you. Your family want you to succeed in life, but when they try to encourage you to do something sensible, that's because they don't believe that you're capable of achieving what you're driven to achieve. You've got to have faith in yourself. Otherwise, nobody else will. Basically, following what I just told you, you can't achieve what you don't believe. I hear people all the time saying, oh, yeah, but I can't do that. Yeah, people come in and say, oh, I would have liked to have been an artist, but I can't draw a straight line. Well, guess what? Artists don't have to draw straight lines. They draw nice curvy lines. When you can't do something, don't say, I can't do that. Say, I can't do that yet. You don't have to be talking about trying to achieve something in the arts. It's just trying to achieve anything that's exceptional. The principles are the same. You have to think positively. Things don't always go right. When they go wrong, don't say I failed. Say that's a setback. And like I said earlier, you're going to be judged by how well you overcome your setbacks, not by how many times you slap down. Strive for the best and learn from what happens that's the worst, because things will go wrong. There'll be times when disaster strikes. But as I've said to you many times, you're going to be measured by how many times you pick yourself up, not how many times you get knocked down. Build on what you have that others don't have. Each morning, ask yourself, what can I do today to get a centimeter closer to where you're trying to go? Or in the book, you write in pencil on the blank pages all the little steps, in the smallest steps you can, what you need to do to achieve a goal. Break it down into small, manageable parts. Achieving your goals one little step at a time. Beware of average opinions. This is really, especially in this age of the internet, where something is gauged to be popular, to be good because it's viral. This is ridiculous. Average is what everybody is. Exceptional is what few people are. You need to put yourself in the box of the few people. Think beyond the average opinion. There are followers in the world, and there are leaders in the world. And you have to remember, when you're looking at the internet and other things, you have to remember that you can't lead by following other people. Don't let life's diversions derail you. I talked about this earlier, where you're going to find that there are all kinds of things that every day there's something that you have to do from the time you get up to the time you go to bed that is distracting you from following in that sense of direction. Make sure you achieve at least one thing every day, because if you can get a centimeter closer today and a centimeter closer tomorrow and a centimeter closer the day afterwards, eventually you've got to get it. It's just a matter of plodding away at it, or chiseling. You're a sculptor. You're sculpting your new life. One chisel, one hammer blow at a time. Be decisive. Sometimes it's better to make the wrong decision and move forward than it is to dither and not make any decision at all. You can always learn by your mistakes. You can always learn a new skill and realize that maybe you should have gone a different way and divert. There isn't a skill that you put in your toolbox that is a waste of time. There's always going to be something that some way that you're going to learn from that. You can't live an exceptional life without making an exceptional effort. I'm really sorry to tell you that, but just get used to it. Just get used to it. Be the one everybody, while other people are watching TV, well, make the most of your time. Time is truly precious. Follow that passion, because it's the passion that will carry you past, the 5 o'clock mark. If you're a guy who sits there and at 4 o'clock you're looking at your watch waiting to leave work, you're not going to get to be the boss there. You're not going to get to be the manager, because you're just there to pay the bills. Should you be living your life to pay the bills, or should you be paying the bills to live your life? I thank you all for coming, and I'm gonna shut this down, but I think you're still going to be able to click on that link afterwards if you want to. Thanks for being here, and maybe I'll see you again sometime. Friend me on Facebook, and then you'll know what's going on, where, and when. I'll see you again.
Well, I'm still here, actually. That's the end of that show, but I thank you all for watching. If you've got any questions, you can always post those, and later on when I've got some time to see what questions were posted, I'll still answer them for you. I started out as a youngster, not knowing where I was going or what I was doing, and my life has evolved in more and more rewarding ways. I like people to understand that when you start, you don't know where you're going. You just know where you'd like to be, and if you just keep chipping away at that future that you want, you really can achieve that. So the museum is still basically surviving on donations at the moment, because we've got no tourists, and it's been going that way for 4 months so far, and we're hoping that it won't all collapse before the tourists come back again. The airport's opened, but there's only a few. I think we've seen 5 tourists so far this week since that opened. So I still need those Patreon supporters, and I still need people that are buying stuff online. Thank you so much for supporting us through that. If anybody wants the book, you can get that either on Amazon, or you can buy it through Barnes and Noble. And various other things. I don't get much out of the book, but trust me, I know that you will. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in another week. Take care. Bye.